be read. Your soul touched mine as we sat there writing words, 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 the very words in which men try to tell things and can't, and I know all about what you would do. But you shall not do it. Dear little copy-maker, would a man standing out on the end of a slippery plank have any right to cry to someone on the shore, "Come out here on this plank with me"? If he loved the someone on the shore, would he not say instead, "Don't get on this plank"? Me get off the plank, come with you to the shore, you are saying. But you see, dear, you only know slippery planks as viewed from the shore. God grant you may never know of them any other way. It was you, was it not, who wrote our definition of happiness? Yes, I remember the day you did it. You were so interested, your cheeks grew so very red, and you pulled and pulled at your wavy hair. You said it was such an important definition. And so it is, Miss Noah, quite the most important of all. And on the page of life, Miss Noah, may happiness be written large and unblurred for you. It is because I cannot help you write it that I turn away. I want to at least leave the page unspoiled. I carry a picture of you. I shall carry it always. You are sitting before a fireplace, and I think of that fireplace as symbolizing the warmth and care and tenderness and the safety that will surround you. And sometimes, as you sit there, let a thought of me come for just a minute, Miss Noah, not long enough or deep enough to bring you any pain. But only think, I brought him happiness after he believed all happiness had gone. He was so grateful for that light which came after he thought the darkness had settled down. It will light his way to the end. We've come to Z, and it's goodbye. There is one thing I can give you without hurting you. The hope, the prayer, that life may be very, very good to you. The sheets of paper fell from her hands. She sat staring out into Dearborn Street. She began to see. After all, he had not understood her. Perhaps men never understood women. Certainly, he had not understood her. What he did not know was that she was willing to pay for her happiness, pay any price that might be exacted. And anyway, she had no choice. Strange that he could not see that. Strange that he could not see the irony and cruelty of bidding her good-bye and then telling her to be happy. It simplified itself to such an extent that she grew very calm. It would be easy to find him, easy to make him see, for it was so very simple. And then she turned in her copy. She said goodbye quietly, naturally, rode down in a lumbering old elevator, and started out into the now drenching rain toward the elevated trains which would take her to the West Side. It was so fortunate that she had heard him telling one day where he lived. When she reached the station, she saw that more people were coming down the stairs than were going up. They were saying things about the trains, but she did not heed them. But at the top of the stairs a man in uniform said, "Blockade, miss. You'll have to take the surface cars." She was sorry, for it would delay her, and there was not a minute to lose. She was dismayed, upon reaching the surface cars, to find she could not get near them. The rain, the blockade on the L, had caused a great crowd to congregate there. She waited a long time, getting more and more wet, but it was impossible to get near the cars. She thought of a cab, but could see none, they too having all been pressed into service. She determined, desperately, to start and walk. Soon she would surely get either a cab or a car. And so she started, staunchly, though she was wet through now, and trembling with cold and nervousness. As she hurried through the driving rain, she faced things fearlessly. Oh yes, she understood everything. But if he were not well, should he not have her with him? If he had that thing to fight, Did he not need her help? What did men think women were like? Did he think she was one to sit down and reason out what would be advantageous? Better a little while with him on a slippery plank than forever safe and desolate upon the shore. She never questioned her going. Were not life and love too great to be lost through that which could so easily be put right? The buildings were reeling, the streets moving up and down. That awful rain, she thought, was making her dizzy. Laboriously she walked on, more slowly, less steadily, a pain in her side, that awful reeling in her head. Carriages returning to the city were passing her, but she had not strength to call to them, and it seemed if she walked to the curbing she would fall. She was not thinking so clearly now. The thing which took all of her force was the lifting of her feet and the putting them down in the right place. Her throat seemed to be closing up, and her side, and her head. Someone had her by the arm. Then someone was speaking her name, speaking it in surprise, consternation, alarm. It was Harold. It was all vague then. She knew that she was in a carriage, and that Harold was talking to her kindly. "You're taking me there?" she murmured. Yes, Edna, everything's all right," he replied soothingly. "Everything's all right," she repeated in a whisper, and leaned her head back against the cushions. They stopped after a while, and Harold was standing at the open door of the cab with something steaming hot, which he told her to drink. "You need it," he said decisively, and thinking it would help her to tell it, she drank it down. The world was a little more defined after that, and she saw things which puzzled her. "Why, it looks like the city," she whispered, her throat too sore now to speak aloud. "Why, sure," he replied banteringly. "Don't you know we have to go through the city to get out onto the south side?" "Oh, but you see," she cried, holding her throat. "But you see, it's the other way." "Not tonight," he insisted. "The place for you tonight is home. I'm taking you where you belong." She reached over wildly, trying to open the door, but he held her back. She began to cry, and he talked to her, gently but unbendingly. "But you don't understand," she whispered passionately. "I've got to go." "Not tonight," he said again, and something in the way he said it made her finally huddle back in the corner of the carriage. Block after block, mile after mile, they rode on in silence. She felt overpowered, and with submission she knew that it was Zed. For the whole city was piled in between. Great buildings were in between, and thousands of men running to and fro on the streets. Man, and all man had builded up, were in between. And then Harold who had always seemed to count for so little, had come and taken her away. Dully, wretchedly, knowing that her heart would ache far worse tomorrow than it did tonight, she wondered about things. Did things like rain and streetcars and wet feet and a sore throat determine life? Was it that way with other people too? Did other people have barriers, whole cities full of them piled in between? And then did the Harolds come and take them where they said they belonged? Were there not some people strong enough to go where they wanted to go? End of From A to Z by Susan Glaspell.